Hi everyone. If I may request you all to come forward, please. Thank you. We're about to start.
And when it comes to the front, I think that would be even better, because I don't know how the slides would look like at the back. So I know at some point in life we have always been in that venture. That's the best place to be at, but that's coming forward.
Don't be shy.
You want to jump in with the like the rolling chair?
No, that's fine.
Go ahead.
Perfect. Good afternoon. My name is Sven Wegner. I'm one of the founders of Scaling Agile Global, which is a global meetup community based on Agile. Before I start talking a bit more about our community, I'd like to quickly introduce Sudarshan from Acellere, because he needs to run to another appointment. So Acellere, Sud.
First of all, welcome to Acellere, and thanks for joining this meetup today. I'm Sudarshan, co-founder and CTO based out of here in this office in Pune. We are a German-Indian company. We started out in 2009 with a goal to help software teams like yours write better software, essentially. And over the years, we built a lot of technology, algorithms, IP around this to analyze what we call as inner software quality. What we look at is not how your software works as intended, but is it built using the right standards, the right principles? Is it sustainable? Is it maintainable? Does it have performance, security problems, and those kind of things? I know that is really important these days, because if you look at it, almost everything that we do today is powered by software, one way or the other. And that's why it's really imperative that these issues, the impact of these issues needs to be understood and addressed. And that's where our product offering, which is called Gamma, helps software teams write better code, write better software quickly and efficiently. And we rolled out Gamma officially in Jan last year. And we have customers who are from the automotive space, aeronautics, oil services, insurance, banking, anywhere where you need software, because people who write software could benefit from our product. And I'm really happy to host this session. Thanks Pranjal and Swarup joining here. And I look forward to really constructive, collaborative discussions. And thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, Sud. And I'd like to thank you all as well, because I've been talking to some of you, and I understand that some of you came from Delhi, Pranjal from Bangalore, Shantanu from Kochi, and then a few other people, I believe. So thank you all for that. So our motto is to connect the members of our community locally by doing local meetups, and at some points globally as well. So I'm sure that some members of our global community are already watching on our live stream, which we set up. We've informed them that we're doing this meetup here, and that's the whole point. Our goal is, after the meetup, to connect you guys as well to the global community. Maybe do a survey, or you guys can contact them. Cool. So it all started 2 years ago with my previous employer. I wanted to know more what Agile is, and we hosted the first meetup just out of the blue, spoke about the 10 failure modes, and then Agile transformation, Andrew Sales, now Scaled Agile. He did that presentation, it was really well. We had also another local consulting company from Germany who are also working in the SAFe space, talk quickly about the different frameworks which exist. Quick facts about us, we're roughly 800 plus members currently, spread across 16 groups in 14 countries, including the US, Middle East, and Australia, and we're growing. Now, our goal is that we don't always do, So our goal is that someone from the community could step up someday and say, hey, I'd like to do a speech or a workshop and to run it. Like, we are there to support you guys with finding a venue. And again, thank you, Acellere, for providing us the venue and the refreshments later on. Yeah, before I jump to Pranjal, I would like to introduce you to our chapter leader from India, that's Sanu Jos. Oh, if you could, please.
Yes.
Just say a few words, please.
Good evening, Pune. No Josh. What happened? We should be agile, right? We should be aggressive, right? We should be active. So I feel like we should be more comfortable. This is, as Sven told, this is a network connectivity. So make sure that you are connecting. We have a wonderful session from Pranjal. So after that, we have a session from DevOps, how Acellere performs the DevOps. So there are a lot of knowledge which they are going to share it. So make sure that you're taking away that, right? Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanu. Next, I'd like to introduce Pranjal Swarup from Scaled Agile Inc. Again, thanks, Pranjal, for coming over and being here with us.
Absolutely. Do you want to show the slides? So thank you again so much, all of you, for joining us today evening. Show of hands if you are hearing the word Agile for the first time. Okay. Thank you. Show of hands if you're hearing DevOps for the first time. That's great. Show of hands if you're hearing words SAFe for the first time. That's interesting. Anybody trained in SAFe? Any SAFe certification? Leading SAFe? I would assume.
SA and SP.
SP, SA, SA.
Yeah.
What about you? Sorry, who else is trained?
SA.
SA, SA, and SA. All right. Okay. Wonderful. You guys can keep me honest over here. Show of hands if you're a C-level in a company. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Show of hands if you are, if you have 15 plus years of experience in the industry. Wonderful. Love it. Thank you so much. My name is Pranjal. I'm part of Scaled Agile Inc. Trust me, there's a company, a real company behind the Scaled Agile framework. Not many people know about that, but the company is Scaled Agile Inc. Who is the CEO of Scaled Agile Inc? Who is the CEO of Scaled Agile Inc? Dean Leffingwell. He is the creator of Scaled Agile framework as well. So I have partner management responsibilities in India and ASEAN. So I work with the partners. I help grow new markets to help them adopt SAFe and agility in their organizations. I also work closely with all of you as community. I love participating in community meetups and supporting the growth of the community as a whole. So you would find me participating in such meetups very often. That being said, what is that we want to achieve today? The topic was SAFe DevOps, right? What is it that you want to achieve today? Do you want to talk about DevOps? Do you want to talk about SAFe? Do you want to talk about both? If you can just speak up. Both? Okay. We won't possibly go into all the finer details because that would be a 2-day course in itself. What I intend to do is today, and I was just trying to find out if I am aligned to your expectation, is that what I intend to achieve today is leave you with good food for thought that you can take away and help your enterprises in your own capacity, or if you're in a consulting capacity, that you can go to those enterprises and help them transform, right? You take that journey. Now, as we know that every business is getting affected by digital disruption, right? According to Bain, digital disruption has 4 components. The first is that you need to have a digital strategy to grow your business. The second is you need to have a business model, which is how you deliver the value to the customers. The third is the enablers, the actual technology and the platforms, which enable you to help deliver the value to the customers. And the fourth is orchestration, as to how do you deliver the change and the transformation which actually helps deliver that value to the customers. Where do you think in these 4 components agility fits? Is it more of a digital strategy, enabler, orchestration? Show of hands. Okay. All right. We'll come back to that thought. But think about this, that when you're trying to create a digital strategy, you need to be thinking agile. Yes. Yes. When you're thinking about enablers, when you're creating that architectural runway for your success, you need to be thinking about agility. Yes. And every business is a software business these days. You recognize this gentleman? Dean Leffingwell? If you do, then you have definitely done a certification on SAFe. So Dean Leffingwell, as he says, that every business is a software business. I was speaking with one of the partners a few days back, and he's actually helping one of the enterprise customers in some of the location, which I can't recall right now. And they're actually creating software for ports. So you have ships coming into different ports, and when different ships come in, different trucks, containers come in, it's a chaos. How do you manage that chaos? How do you even find out how many trucks need to come in and how many ships need to come in and how do they leave, and which are the open spaces which you can place the container, where is your container, how do you get it out, how do you get it in, right? So they're actually creating a software for that. So you would never imagine that a shipping company would actually be investing into building software for themselves. And there are tons of examples that we have in India itself now with all the bed that we have of startups and so on and so forth. So every business is a software business right now. The challenge is that it's mostly understood as that agility needs to be adopted only at the team level, but the reality is that it has to be more of a business imperative, right? You need, your business needs to be agile. It's not that the teams which are working need to be agile. And what is really required is a lean enterprise, right? So we need a lean enterprise. If you look some of these retrospectives over here, does any one of them sound familiar to you? And I'll read it out for you if you're not able to read it at the back. No way to improve systematically. Sounds familiar? Too little visibility. We don't know what the other teams are doing. We're developing systems, we have dependencies. We don't know how would our dependency be affecting others, and how would they release and how would we release. Too early commitment to a design that didn't work, late delivery, hard to manage distributed teams, massive growth in complexity. At the end of the day, dissatisfied customers and poor morale of the team members are actually delivering that, right? This has been the tradition of some of the delivery organizations. I would say most of the delivery organizations that I have worked with, I saw these myself hands-on. Now, most of you would know this, but I know that some of us are taking our journey to agility. So if you look closely at this picture, what does it depict? It depicts that when you're delivering the value in the waterfall model, when do you realize the economics of it? You realize the economics of it at the end, right? When you're delivering incrementally, when do you realize the economics of it? Every iteration, right? Because you're delivering the MVP at every iteration, and then you start realizing economics of it. So, and then also you realize that if you are too late in the cycle, the requirements change, which of course they do all the time, and there would be a huge impact at the end to the delivery as compared to when you're actually building delivery and delivering that MVP to the customer. That's how you're able to change your approach as and when it's required. Now, keeping that thought in mind, how do you actually achieve that? Scaled Agile Framework, as the name suggests, it helps you scale the agility in your enterprise. What does that mean?
If you break it down, you're practicing agility by doing a lot of practices. Agility at the end of the day is a mindset, right? When you adopt that mindset, you are actually following a certain set of principles which actually drives certain behavior and culture in the organization. And that is something which comes out as part of Scaled Agile framework. So there are more than 400,000 people trained on SAFe around the world at this moment. It's a freely available knowledge base on internet, scaledagilepframework.com. You can always go up, look up, read about it. But of course, you would have to get trained on it, right? There's one thing that you get a book on how to drive a car, and then there's another thing that you get a trainer to actually help you learn how to drive a car. So that's the difference. So you have to get yourself trained, and that's how you can actually start driving SAFe adoption in the enterprises. And then, of course, there are a lot of business results over here. These are not something that we have made up. These are from the real case studies that we have seen from the enterprise customers. All these case studies can be found on scaledagile.com. And then, of course, one more thing that I would like to mention over here, there are a few studies out there from Gartner, from version 1 CollabNet. You can easily Google the 12th annual Agile report by version 1 CollabNet. You will find that the market adoption of Scaled Agile framework is the highest at around 30-odd%. I think the next one is around 19%, and that's pretty much a DIY approach. What people usually do is they take a mix of this and mix of that, they try to combine it together, make it a khichdi, and then that's how they deliver. Maybe they're successful sometimes, maybe they don't, but that's the second best or second closest competitor to Scaled Agile framework. Now, when you are talking to building the lean enterprise and helping adopt agility, there are 5 key things that we need to keep in mind. The 5 key things are that we have to organize around value. We'll talk about that. We have to develop a continuous delivery pipeline, which comes to the DevOps aspect. We have to apply a calmer approach to DevOps, which you will learn that how DevOps and agility comes together. And you have to employ a new style of leadership where you will find out how does the leadership support actually help adopt help drive the change within the organization, and then how do you use SAFe as to drive that. So before we get into that, organizing around value, let's take a quick look at some basic fundamentals. Who has seen this picture before? Okay, so for those who haven't, this is coming from the Toyota's House of Lean. What essentially says, and very interesting to note over here is that the leadership is at the bottom and not at the top, because the value is at the top. The leadership supports the 4 pillars over here in the House of Lean, and that's how you deliver the value to the customers that comes at the top. You definitely need leadership support in an organization to be able to deliver the value. Now, there are 4 pillars over here, quickly going through them. Respect for people and culture. Quite self-explanatory. Like, if you don't respect people and the culture and the different nuances that they're working in, then you pretty much are setting yourself for failure. Flow is very, very important. You have to be delivering value across functions as a continuous flow. There should not be any start and stop delays as projects, right? And we'll talk more about this in a moment. Innovation. People think that innovation is an external thing, and maybe we plan for innovation. However, it should be the other way around. Innovation should be built into your delivery, built into how you deliver value to the customer. And we will also look at that as to how SAFe enables to do that. And then relentless improvement. You are not going to survive for long if you're not adapting to the changing market dynamics and the changing business dynamics. So you have to be improving relentlessly. Now, of course, we all know Agile Manifesto, and of course, it doesn't mean that the things on the right that you see over here, processes and tools and comprehensive documentation and plan and negotiation of the contract, these are not important. It's just that what Agile Manifesto says is the things on the left are more important in order for you to be able to succeed as an Agile organization. All right? Now, let's look at quick videos. I'm sure most of you would not have.
Find the browser. On the left side, yep.
All right, so have a look at this video closely and see what's happening. This is a video which teaches us flow. What you see over here, people are doing is, there are 4 people sitting over there, and this was recorded in real life example, it's not enacted. And the responsibility is that one person would flip the coin, there are 10 pennies each. They will flip the coin and they will record it with the head and tails. And in this round, what they're doing is that one person flips all the coins and then passes all the points to the next one. If you relate it to your real world example, what happens is the requirements come from the business, then they go into design, then they go into development, they go into testing. So there are a lot of phases which the things have to go through. Now you see that the 4th person is actually already losing his interest, he's already on the phone, right? So that's how sometimes the testers might be just sitting idle, doing nothing. So what you see right now is almost 56 seconds, and we haven't delivered a single coin at the end yet. We're still flipping the coins, and now it's going to the 3rd person. The 4th person is still on the phone, and now after almost 2 minutes, 1 minute 58 seconds, that's what it took for everybody to flip the coin and get to the last stage. Now let's look, if we can change that approach a bit, what happens? Now what they changed was that instead of keeping on waiting and creating that batch, a large batch, they're just passing on the coin. So the first coin is already delivered by the end of 10 seconds. The first value is already delivered as an MVP to the customer by the end of 10 seconds, right? Now, what you see as the end of this video is the first process took 1 minute 58 seconds. Let's see how long this takes. All the coins are flipped. There were no start-stop delays, and see how much quickly were you able to deliver the value to the customer. So think about the terms that if you have to deliver faster time to market to the customer, then maybe we need to change the way the flow is happening in the organization. Getting back to my slide. And this is a start-stop delay, sorry. All right, so what it says is that value doesn't deliver in silos. This is what I've been saying, that if you have a business, you go to systems engineering, hardware, software, test and QA, you cannot deliver value in the silos. There's too much of start-stop delays, the flow is not continuous. Instead, what you need to do is replace all these functional silo-based organizations with cross-functional teams such that every team is self-organized. One single team can deliver the value to the customer. Every team should be able to define, build, test, and deploy. Every team should be self-organized. You should not be waiting on any other team to be able to deliver that value for you. And that's how you start building agility at the team level, right? Some of you might already be practicing this, but then that's the minimum, and that's a very, what I've said, the most minimal implementation and construct of agility. Now, can you think of one of the most agile organization in India that has been practicing agility since maybe centuries?
The Indian Army.
That's right. Indian Army. Think of it, that one platoon is going out, and if they're not self-organized, if they independently cannot deliver value, what happens is, oh, I don't have a radio, how do I communicate? Oh, I don't have a sniper, how do I fire? Right? Oh, I forgot the person who carries the bag of all the food and all the supplies. So pretty much you're setting yourself for failure. So look at the organization which practices agility since almost 150 years in India, and it applies to almost all the armies across the world. That's the model that you can always look up to in terms of the agility, one of the most agile organizations in the world. They don't wait for you to know when somebody's firing. They don't call up their bosses in Delhi or wherever that, can I fire? They do fire because they have very clear instructions, they have very clear understanding of the business objective, and that's how they act on the fly and on the field. So what essentially happens is, if you take that back to the construct of SAFe, You have all these cross-functional teams coming together, they're forming an agile release train. What is an agile release train in SAFe? Agile release train in SAFe is a combination of around 7 to 10 teams who are actually working across functions, working and aligned to a particular product, and all of them are self-sufficient. It starts with at least 50 people, it could go up to 125, 130 people, and that's how you're not just practicing agility at the team level, but you're practicing agility at the program level, such that all these teams can now come together, plan together, they build on cadence, they have synchronization because of various ceremonies that they do together, and they ensure that every bit of value that they deliver is showcased on every iteration, and everybody's dependency is recognized and identified and sorted in the PI planning process. Now, before I move to the next thought, I would want you to form a group of maybe 3 or 4 members each and have a discussion. I will time box it to 2 minutes. In your small groups, in your small teams that you have of 4 members each or 5 members each, scribble on your notepad as to what DevOps means to you, and not more than 2 or 3 points. I want to see what is our understanding of DevOps in this room. So if you can please self-organize, form a team of 4 or 5, and have a discussion. I'll time box it to 2 minutes, and scribble quickly on your notepad as to what does DevOps mean to you, and it should not be more than 2 to 3 points. One more minute. Not more than 3 points each team. That's fine, you can apply the USGF and prioritize. All right. You know what this means? Show of hands when you're doing an activity? Yeah? Okay. So in Scaled Agile, whenever we're doing PI planning, our team will come on the stage, we're doing a lot of conversation, it's all chaotic. We just shows of hands and everybody's silent. They shows of their hands and you stop doing whatever you're doing. All right. Okay, thank you so much. I might not have time to have everybody read it out, but how about if you can share what you wrote?
So we have written 3 points primarily. For us, DevOps means collaboration between the development and the ops teams, where the team works together, where the team works to ensure that the release is done on demand. It could be a collaboration of the development and the ops team,
Okay.
and they work seamlessly to ensure that
Collaboration.
The collaboration
Okay.
happens seamlessly. And it could be they could also use a set of tools which will enable them to
Okay.
meet
Collaboration and tools. What else? Who wants to share? You?
Continuous integration and delivery,
CI/CD, of course. Okay.
and cultural transformation.
Okay.
And there are multiple tools associated. There is not a single, defined set of tools that help in achieving the DevOps.
Okay.
It can be a combination of multiple tools.
Okay. Quickly going back, yes.
So it's a combination of people, process, tools and technology.
People, process, tools, and technology. Wonderful. I had some people at the back who are new to agility. Do you have something to share? There is no negative marking for this. Yes.
Synchronized, unsiloed, lean and mean development.
Mean.
Lean and mean development,
Okay.
and adequately equipped.
Okay. Anybody else at the back? No? Alright. So we heard collaboration, people, process, tools, culture, CI/CD. Nobody talked about automation.
Part of the user experience.
Okay.
Means of
Okay, all right. So now, when we talk about DevOps, how many of us think that DevOps and Agile are different? Okay. Used to?
Yeah.
Not anymore? Why?
I would say when I was new to it, I thought that Agile and DevOps, they have some two different terminologies, meaning something different. But
Okay.
later I realized that I would say that DevOps is a kind of a subset to Agile. So if an organization is being Agile, they can use DevOps as a means to use for that agility.
Pretty much bang on. Anybody else differs with this thought? Or have different thought altogether?
It's just a
Okay.
terminology used in way to deliver.
Sorry, say that again, please.
It's basically, I think I can be allowed enough. Okay, it's basically a terminology used, a form, which actually is practiced in agility in order to see to it that we are having a faster go-to-market through different means. So it's just a term that which I so
It's just a term. Okay. All right. We'll see how that evolves. Okay. So when we talk about DevOps, and I'm just going to keep DevOps part siloed at this moment, and then we'll see how does Agile and DevOps come together. They indeed are married to each other. They are not separate. So when we talk about DevOps, we talk about continuous exploration, we talk about continuous integration, and we talk about continuous deployment or delivery. And then when do we release? We release on demand. What is continuous exploration?
basically refining the backlog.
Defining the
How does that happen?
When you deliver value to a customer and if there are any feedbacks, you tend to keep
So
on-
feedback, of course, feedback is important. Feedback is a loop. But then how do you start with something?
You do research.
You do research, how's that?
Surveys,
Okay.
through customer interviews. There are different means of it.
Okay.
You can-
And then there's a budget which is aligned to it. So you have to have the budget as the guardrails to it. And then you start defining an epic. That epic is broken down to an MVP. You test, you define the leading indicators or trailing indicators, and you test that hypothesis. If it is successful, then you persevere. If it fails, then you pivot, right? And that's how it actually kind of continuously exploring. When does continuously exploring start and stop?
When you meet your MVP goal as an initial indicator that whatever you are practicing or
Okay.
whatever you have, that is kind of success,
Okay.
and you can stop the exploration for a specific area.
Okay, we'll come to that thought. What is continuous integration? This is finding the integration points and continuously integrating to different environments, your staging, your production, and then you release in your staging environment, your production environment, that's your continuously delivering, and that's you come to a release on demand. What is a value stream?
The process minus the process.
Okay.
Basically, meet the customer needs is the value stream, I can say in a very short term.
Okay.
For example, if I take a banking and the customer is there, what kind of value a particular system can provide to the customer, and different means. that's how.
So simplistically speaking, one can define value stream as a trigger, which could be anything, like a system trigger or a lead or whatever happens, and the actual business value in terms of the dollar value to the customer that you deliver to the customer, right? And the entire value stream, if you look at it, if you look at the entire value stream, this is define, implement, and deploy. And there's a lead time from the trigger to the actual business value. That entire value stream itself follows the DevOps, if you look at it that way, right? And coming back to your point, you never stop exploring. You're always exploring, you're always finding opportunities for features, for you breaking down features, you prioritizing the features, you're talking to the customers, because if you stop exploring, what happens? You pretty much are back to the project model. What happens in the project model, you get the requirement, you pass it to design, it goes to build, it goes to test, deploy, and then what happens? Project is run, resources are released, they go back to bench, and they are then pulled into different other teams. Instead, what is happening right now in two different PI plannings, there continuous exploration, which is always happening, continuous integration is always happening, and continuous deployment is always happening. And when do you release? What does that mean?
At will, whenever you want to.
Really?
Not really. Probably I would differ. As you meet the customer needs, or your customer is satisfied with what you are proposing, that's what you start deploying the integrations.
Sure. So you build on cadence, and you release on demand when the customer needs it, right? Not that I want to release today. It's not that I want to release today that I can release it today. You could have various value streams, and there could be various streamlets to a value stream. And some of them you might be delivering almost on a daily basis, maybe every couple of hours you might be releasing. And some of them could be monthly releases or yearly releases as well, right? So it depends on when the customer wants to release, but you always have that ready in your production environment, tested, and of course on the staging environment as well. You could also follow a Kanban board approach to developing the DevOps. Have you seen this before? Yes. So when you're doing this continuous exploration, you're actually funneling the same thing that I mentioned, working towards a hypothesis, breaking that down to an MVP, and doing the validation, releasing, done and dusted, right? Now, there is this is actually a very good assessment that you can do for your individuals and for your organizations. There's a SAFe Health Radar, which has been created by Scaled Agile. And what it actually helps you to measure is that on this radar chart that you have, and of all the components that you see on continuous exploration, continuous integration, continuous deployment, and release on demand, from 1 to 5, and 1 to 5 means sit, crawl, walk, run, and fly, where are you in this? And when you start plotting that, then you start working towards how can I go to from 1 to 5 on all these components, and that's how you're continuously evolving, continuously improving as well, right? So this is something that you can use to build in more of a cultural aspect of DevOps. And people mentioned culture and collaboration and people and processes aspects. So this is something which is driving towards that.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is that a self-assessment or is it an audit assessment?
So good question. There is an Excel download which is available on scaledagile.com. There's another tool which is one of our partners' tool. You can just Google it, SAFe DevOps Health Radar, and you can find I think Agility Health Radar or something. I don't remember the exact URL, but it's a platform partner with us who has created it more in a better UI than just an Excel. And all you have to do is just keep on moving the slider on each and every components of it, and it will give you a nice report at the end of it. So it's something that you can use actively to evaluate your own competencies and how you're practicing it.
So that still doesn't answer my question. Is it a self-assessment or is it an audit assessment?
Oh, okay. So it depends on how do you want to do that. Could be a self-assessment, right? That I want to find out how well my team is adopting DevOps. It could be an audit as well if you're going in as a consultant. Let's say you're a SAFe program consultant and you're working and helping the enterprise with their transformation. So you might just want to use it and see how can I get from this tiny health radar to a larger health radar, right? So it could be used both ways. All right. Now, what you wrote all those points down on your scribble. I'll come back to that. But what SAFe says is that there's no DevOps manifesto. You would not ever have brought a DevOps manifesto. Now what SAFe says is that DevOps and Agile are not different. They're indeed part of each other. In fact, agility is a mindset and DevOps is a culture. A mindset drives the culture. So you have a cultural framework within the big picture of SAFe that you see, in which you call a calmer approach, C-A-L-M-R, calmer approach. What does it mean? I'm not going to go into more details on this, but let's look at a very high level. Culture, automation, lean flow, measurement, and recovery. This is how you actually build the culture of DevOps within the organization and bring it close to agility when you're adopting SAFe. DevOps is a cultural shift. As you talked about collaboration, building that culture of failing fast and trying out different things and ensuring that everybody has a shared responsibility to the success. That's a cultural thing. Right? That has to be driven by the leadership of the organization. Some of you are leaders over here, so when you are, and others are budding leaders. So you have that responsibility to ensure that you have that, start developing that culture in the organization, in the mindset of your organization and the customer's organization, that this is something that needs to be practiced on a day-to-day basis. It's also about automating the deployment process. And there are plenty full of tools which are available which actually help you with the automation of the deployment, focusing on automating healthy processes and fixing everything and the continuous delivery pipeline that you're actually maintaining. Measurement is critical. You have to measure, right? There are all different kind of metrics which are available, so collection of data so that you can start reporting on that. Measurement is critical. I don't know if anybody mentioned measurement. Architect for releasability and recovery. Your mean time to recover, right? How can you have a speedy and reliable and a way to the recovery rather than focusing on the architecture, which is a mean to recovery? Focus on how can you recover quickly and still have that reusability and maintainability for your value that you're delivering to the code. So there's a calmer approach, and the SAFe DevOps certification actually goes in depth of all these cultural aspects of DevOps. It's a 2-day certification. You pretty much spend half a day talking about the calmer approach. So you read about that more over there. Now, what I would want you to do is, going back to the same groups that you identified, the 3 or 4 components of DevOps that you understand. In calmer approach, C-A-L-M-R, where do these fit? And what is it that you never thought about or didn't think about? Go back to the same groups, we'll time box it again for a 2-minute exercise, and think about in the C-A-L-M-R, and maybe I can go back to the same slide so that you can have it over here. Which of it actually did you miss? 30 more seconds. Okay. I would want somebody at the back to share it this time. What did you miss? Of all the points that you wrote down earlier, And now looking at how SAFe helps define or kind of gives you the construct to doing DevOps as a culture in the organization. Which of these aspects did you miss earlier? At the back.
The first thing, the culture, how we missed it.
Culture? You never thought about the culture?
Yes.
Okay.
Nowadays, in most of the teams, we have one or two people who is working, who are taking care of the DevOps activity. So that's why we need that responsibility part. And also, we need the lean flow.
Lean flow?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we follow only automation part, we follow, but how to accelerate that delivery part. So that was the
Okay. Do you think they're important?
yeah.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else?
Recovery part.
Recovery?
Recovery part.
Okay. What exactly is the recovery part? Why didn't you consider the recovery part?
In a way, I think the feedback mechanism feels that how to recover from the possible failures, which will be eventually in many situations.
Right.
So that part I think is in terms of
Okay. Which?
So the feedback, the continuous feedback if you're getting from the customer, it will fit under measurement or recovery?
Let's see. The question is, if you're getting the continuous feedback from the customer, where would this fit into this calmer approach?
probably I'll put it in lean flow.
Okay. Why?
It's basically the feedback mechanism where reiteration of the product backlog happens.
Okay.
Like the readiness of the ready to use, whatever artifacts that is supposed to get delivered. It fits into that.
Feedback is also some sort of a measurement.
Measurement. That is also.
The customer is measuring you.
Right.
So going back to your own and louder. And I think something which we miss, which most of us miss, is culture.
Culture.
Because we take culture for granted.
Right.
Right. So we are Indians, and we think we are very cultural. And a lot of people actually
Yes.
mix and match the culture that we have socially and the professional culture that
That's
we
right.
people mix. I'm sure many people even now think culture means the social culture
Yeah.
and all that Indian culture. It's
Yeah.
not that.
Yeah.
I think people take it for granted, and people are not just clear even now, most of them, what it means and how important it is. If you ask me how much, I know probably 10%.
So great point. And I think I never knew of the cultural aspect of the DevOps as well. But does that answer your question? That measurement is something that you can always find as the feedback coming on, right? Lean flow actually, right? So ensuring there's a continuous delivery happening to the customer. So there is feedback, and if I can go back a couple of slides over here. So you see this, right? It's continuously happening, continuous integration and continuous deployment. So in the exploration phase, you're continuously taking the feedback from the customer as well. You're testing the MVP by having that leading indicators and trailing indicators. And if they don't succeed, then you pivot. And if they succeed, then you persevere. So there's a lot of feedback which is involved in that. So continuous exploration is happening, and that's part of the measurement and also the lean flow aspect of it. All right? But I think I would agree that people think about DevOps as a tool. I have DevOps as a person who is responsible for DevOps. Somebody told me an hour back that this person is responsible for DevOps. So DevOps is not a person. DevOps is a shared responsibility. Like everybody owns that responsibility, and it's a culture that you drive the mindset of agility, and then you drive the culture of DevOps. All right, moving along. Where am I? This is not responsive. Okay. Now, I think to drive all this, I think, and I don't think, I firmly believe that nothing happens in the organization. No change has ever been successful if you don't have leadership support. Agree?
Yes.
Now, it requires a lot of thinking and a lot of skill and a lot of planning and lot of being in the uncomfortable seat and in an uncomfortable position that you can actually drive the change within an organization. Like if you as a team leader, as a project manager, if you have 10 people reporting to you, and if you're asked to change the organization as small as 10 people, you might get nightmares out of it. I have seen that in my personal life. And think about changing an organization as big as 500 people, 1,000 people, 5,000 people. TCS is an organization, 400,000 people, right? If you change the entire organization, that will be really nightmarish and it would really drive a lot of planning. So I think 4 important aspects over here that actually helps the leadership drive that transformation. One is exemplifying the core values of SAFe, and we'll come to that in a moment. Embracing a lean, agile mindset, which you saw earlier as part of the Agile Manifesto in the House of Lean. Apply the SAFe principles, we'll look through that and lead the transformation. So, a quick exercise again. I'll give you a very simple requirement. Let's say this podium over here. The requirement is that you have to tie a rope to this podium and move this in north direction. Now, without using any gadgets, and trusting me, close your eyes, put your hands up, close your eyes, trust me. Close your eyes, put your hands up, and point in the north. Point in the north. Keep your eyes closed, keep your hands up, point in the north. Point in the north. Keep your eyes closed. Alright, keep your hands up. Keep your hands up in the same direction. Open your eyes and look around. Was the requirement too complex? It was very simple. This is the podium, tie a rope to it and move it to north. This is what happens when you're building systems across different teams and you don't have alignment, right? So if this single room cannot align on such a simple requirement, imagine if you're building a Boeing or 737 MAX, which unfortunately has been crashing. So what happens? Alignment, built-in quality, transparency, and program execution. These are the 4 important and the core principles to SAFe. These are the principles which are embedded in everything that we do as part of SAFe as an operating model when you deliver value as a business organization, right? These are all aligned to the SAFe principles. I don't have time to actually go through each and every one of them. This is again a half-day topic in leading SAFe, which some of you would have taken. Taking an economic view, applying system syncing, assuming variability and preserving options, building incrementally with fast integrated learning cycles, DevOps, base milestones on objective evaluation of working systems, visualizing a limiting WIP, reduce batch sizes and manage queue lengths, again DevOps aspect, apply cadence, synchronization with cross-domain planning, unlock the intrinsic motivation of knowledge workers and decentralize decision making. If you think of this and think of Indian Army, you would find that everything fits over there. Everything fits in a platoon or in a battalion of an Indian Army or any other army for that matter in the world, right? Why can't we use the same principles, be able to deliver value to our enterprises and to enterprise customers? That's a thought for you. Of course, everything takes a path. There's a roadmap to everything. You have a plan for everything. And there's a most common misconception that actually happens in India as a market is we are a very certification happy market. We go out and take certification, and not bashing against any certification over here, but we go out and take certifications, and what do? We probably took the certification for maybe not sure why. We wanted that because we wanted that on a resume. We wanted because our manager wanted us to do that. We were sitting idle, we had a couple of $1,000 with us, we just went ahead and did that certification. The value is when you actually take that learning and implement that in the organization construct that you're part of, right? And that's where you see that the implementation roadmap over here is something that you should be looking at and not looking at the certifications as part of the implementation roadmap. Think about your own enterprises. When you think about your own team, your program, your business unit, your entire enterprise, how is it that you can help drive that organization adopt agility or SAFe in a specific? So let's say you have some approach over here, you go SAFe, you train the change agents, which are nothing but your SAFe program consultants who are who have the knowledge and the skill set to actually help drive the change within the organization. It's a 4-day course which happens by multiple partners in the organization or in the region. And then what you do is you create a lean agile center of excellence. Some people might call it LAY, some people might call it COE for Agile. So it could be different names, but that team becomes responsible for creating a plan for deployment of SAFe across the organization. You train the leaders and managers, which is the most critical aspect, because if the leadership is not on board, nothing happens. Couple of days back, not couple of days, in fact, couple of months back, we were in discussion with a group of enterprise customers, a large group of enterprise customers. There were some partners as well of ours who were participating in that discussion. And what we figured out was that the discussion was that why people are not adopting SAFe or actual implementation of SAFe. What people do is they would take one version of this framework, another version of that framework, maybe another combination of different framework, and they all try to combine it together. What actually ends up happening is that they take a body of an Audi and an engine of a Maruti and then put on the brakes of Fiat, and they try to create something which maybe works, maybe it doesn't. So the actual question was that how can we help these organizations understand the value of implementation of a pure SAFe implementation? And it's not that we are against any of the frameworks, but what we said was that why don't you talk to the customer, understand their requirement, maybe if SAFe is not applicable over there, which you can easily analyze as an SPC, when you're trained as an SPC, then just stick to one framework. Like I heard of an organization which is doing Spotify and less, and they call it Spotless. So I don't know how spotless were they, but really it doesn't make sense. So if you have to do a different approach, just do that purely. If you have to do a less, just do less. If you have to do a Spotify, just do a Spotify. And what also happens is this is a cultural thing as well, right? That whatever customer says, we'll do that. Most of the time, the customers might not even know what approach works best for them. So we have to be wearing that consulting hat such that we can analyze and understand the construct which the customer's business requirement has, and then be able to find out what is the best approach that works for the customer, right? We hear this a lot, that most of these enterprise transformations are being driven from outside. The customer says that we have to do SAFe, we have to do Spotify, whatever the name is of the framework. We agree to it, yes, of course, we'll do it. Rather than that, think about this. And most of us are leaders over here in this organization representing different, in this room, representing different enterprises. Think of this. When you get the requirements from the customer, the traditional way has been that we look at the requirements and we give it to different teams, and the teams start working in silos, and what we become a delivery organization. Instead of that, if we flip it around and saying that why don't we all come together as a self-organized team, which we can design, build, test, and deploy, come together, and then rather than just taking that requirement and start working on our individual silo values, come together and starting applying innovation thinking to that problem statement. Then we become innovation thinkers, and then we drive the consulting and the innovation from inside out rather than being driven from outside in, right? So that was the discussion, and there's huge potential, huge opportunity rather than working in silos. People are brilliant, right? There's nothing against the people over here or anywhere in the world for that matter. It's just that it's a management challenge, that how do you ensure that the value which is getting delivered in silos, everybody can come together and deliver value in a self-organized team. All right, and this is the SAFe as a framework. Looks overwhelming, but you don't have to start practicing everything on day one. You start small, you take baby steps. There are different configurations of SAFe. The minimum configuration is essential SAFe. You can always go to scaledagileFramework.com. This image is over there. All these are clickables. You can click on all these icons and it will tell you more about what these actually are. And in fact, I know of a couple of organizations which have actually just read this and implemented SAFe by themselves without going through the training that we recommend, but those are like rare. I would again say that reading a book and driving a car and getting trained on driving a car, right? So take time to understand this. Take time to work with one of our partner organizations who can actually help you understand how do you essentially go about transforming the organization using some of these configurations of SAFe, and then how do you get trained as an organization. Keep on thinking and keep in mind that training and certification is a byproduct of the transformation which you are doing in the organization. That is not the end goal. Sometimes I hear that, oh, organization doesn't want to invest into so many people. Well, it's not about investing in people. Look at it the other way around. It's about investing in your own organization and then running through the transformation, and then people get trained as a byproduct of the transformation. They would get trained anyway, right? So work with some of our partners, and some of the times what I hear is that people say that, yeah, we are doing some of this, some of that, we are doing SAFe. And it's not about, again, doing SAFe. There are 10 different things over here. If you don't do any of these, then you are not doing SAFe. If you're not following the lean agile principles, you're not doing SAFe. If you don't have agile release teams and trains, if you're not building on cadence, you don't have synchronization points, if you're not doing PI planning, that's again one of the events where everybody comes together as a train, all the 100+ people come together, they work together for 2 days, just planning and nothing else, and they help define what is it that they want to do in the next PI, which is nothing but maybe a next quarter for some of us, ranging from 10 weeks to 12 weeks, and all of them come together, identify the dependencies, and work together to plan for the next PI. If you're not doing DevOps, you're not doing SAFe. You're not doing system demos, inspect and adapts, IT iterations, you don't have an architectural runway, and you don't have agile leadership support, you're not doing SAFe, right? So if you're not doing any of these, this is an essential SAFe assessment, which is again available on scaledagile.com. Download that, and it goes to further details. Look at how your enterprises are doing. If you're not doing any of these, then how is it that you can get to that journey? And then, of course, somebody asked me that there has to be measurable metrics. Of course there are. You can't define success without measuring the actual metrics, and all these metrics are measured, and they have translated to almost like higher engagement, higher productivity, faster time to market, and higher defect reduction. This is all from the case studies that we have. You'll find plentiful of case studies on scaledagile.com. All these people, all these different enterprises, huge enterprises doing SAFe and DevOps, they talk a lot about all these. And the case studies are there only because they're doing SAFe. Case studies are not there because they missed out on one of the critical elements of the essential SAFe. A lot of courses available. Again, I would not want you to focus on the courses, but there's something which is for SAFe DevOps, which is specifically available. That's highlighted over here. There are a huge list of courses. Again, there's a huge list of courses, keeping in mind that everybody plays a very different role in the organization. The role that Shantanu is playing will be very different in an organization, in the same organization, that Uruj will be playing and somebody else would be playing, right? So if you are a change agent, if you're a scrum master, if you're a product owner, you're a product manager, if you are a leader, you're a developer, you're a DevOps, your team needs DevOps capability. So these are all very specific roles, and that's how you'll see that the certifications which SAFe provides are very different from any other certifications, and you would always have something for your own career aspiration. When your organization is going through SAFe transformation, you would always have something which is applicable to you that you can always find over here. I think that's pretty much it. What questions do you have?
I have a very curiosity around the DevOps, which is practiced by a lot of. So when a particular DevOps is started, what kind of maturity that is that the process or the function needs to bring in when you are practicing or implementing the SAFe Agile? That is always a curious question. Like, what kind of maturity that you should have at analysis?
And maturity in terms of understanding of SAFe, or
understanding of DevOps practices that needs to be there when you are practicing or implementing SAFe?
Zero. You always start, right? And SAFe doesn't say that you have to be practicing Scrum, or you have to be practicing DevOps, or you have to be practicing Agile product management in order to implement SAFe. SAFe says you have some experience working on agility, which I think most of the organizations would anyway have, in some shape and form. That's always debatable. But if you have been practicing agility for some time, maybe a couple of years, it's very easy for you to understand how you actually do SAFe. But even if you don't, it's a good start. And I always give my example to people. Like I joined Scaled Agile January of 2018. I came from zero background on agility. I didn't know what features are, backlogs are. All these sounded alien to me. And it took me almost 6 months to get onto that journey, right? But now I can't think of going back to older ways of working. It's impossible. So it's a mindset, it's a culture which has been now developed, and it's very, very challenging to actually change the mindset and build a culture, right? So you don't need a maturity, but you need an openness to embrace the change. And you need to be a driver, you need to have a good leadership support, and if you're yourself a leader, then you need to support it. I don't know if you have read this or seen this quote from Edward Demings. He's an authority on SAFe, on agility, not on SAFe. In his 1986 book, Out of Crisis, there's a winning example that he says that there were two VPs of manufacturing having a conversation, and one of the VPs says that, hey, your production system is looking amazing. People are really happy. They're not leaving. You're very productive. You're churning, creating a lot of units every day. How is it that I can learn? And he said that come to my production house, and I'll show you as to how it is done. But if you can't come, then send nobody else. What that says is that this is a responsibility which should not be delegated. There are two leaders who are talking about it, who are driving change. One is that it just goes out and says, hey, we are doing Agile, we are doing everything possible, we are adopting SAFe, we are adopting whatever other frameworks are, and does nothing. And there's another guy who actually goes ahead and sits through the trainings himself and understands it and embraces it and drives it and participates in all the system demos and INAs and IP iterations and PI planning. Who do you think would be more successful? The one who's actually committing to it and not just talking about it, right? So it's a mindset, it's a culture. It takes some change. You don't need any maturity. Like you don't need a Scrum certification per se or less certification per se to start using SAFe. You can start from zero. You can start from scratch.
Any organizations in Pune who have implemented SAFe successfully, success stories? Can you list?
Are you from one of them?
No.
How do you know that?
I know because I am from Persistent.
Okay, of course. Then you have more examples, I'm sure.
Yeah. Their Medline is there.
Yes. And it's not just limited to these 2 or 3 names, there are more than that. Again, don't think of that, entire organization has to adopt SAFe. You always start with essentials SAFe. You always start with that agile release train of that 100, 150 people. You always start small. A change is not something that you can just go all guns blazing and the entire organization is going through the change. You always start small, you take baby steps, and then that's how you progress. One agile release train after another. But that's how you would have identified a value stream. And it's again, a very technical discussion, but maybe that drives you to more detailed conversation and thinking, and maybe to one of these courses, which can then eventually translate to you taking that responsibility and wearing the hat of driving that change in your enterprise or in your customer's organization. What more questions do you have?
Do you share the deck?
I can. I'll just have to make it black and white because the framework is there. No usage of framework in any shape and form. That's an IP infringement. So I can share the deck. I'll just make it black and white and share it with you so that you can share it.
I will share it then through Meetup platform. Or
most of the slides I have seen is because I have attended the SPC course.
That's right.
Some of them which is part of Curious, so that's why I asked.
You'll find most of these slides anyway in one of the toolkits that are available to you. Yeah. So again, one thing that I would want to mention is that there are tons of toolkits which are available to you when you take these certification. Scaled Agile is an organization, and that actually also differs SAFe as a framework from any other framework. Not that I'm bashing any other framework. They're all good in their own shape and form, but what I've heard from the partners is that the kind of documentation, the kind of tools and toolkits which are available to you to help you in your day-to-day job once you take a SAFe certification, they are very helpful. There's plenty of documentation and plenty of toolkits which you can use to help facilitate your day-to-day job activities. So all those are available to you once you take those SAFe certifications, and even more if you become a Scaled Agile partner.
So does SAFe provide any certification for Agile coaches?
Sorry?
Does SAFe provide any certification for Agile coaches?
What is an Agile coach? Or who is an Agile coach? That's a question to you.
Anyone who has a good experience of working in Agile world.
Okay. How about the coaching aspect?
That is what I know.
Okay.
Does SAFe provide any kind of certification which will help a coach to perform his responding much more effectively?
So my understanding is this, and it might differ from everybody's understanding as well. So Agile coach is nothing but being a person who has good hands-on implementation, understanding, and knowledge of agility, and has, lot of experience coaching and consulting and value selling, right? Now, some of these are soft skills and some of these are skills that can be learned. Soft skill can be built over time. Those are mostly coaching skills, and some of these skills which you can learn. So the SAFe program consultants, the SPC certification that we have, that is something that can actually help you get there. SAFe program consultant as a certification, as a role, has a responsibility of driving that entire implementation roadmap in the organization, which is essentially that you have to be really good at coaching, you have to be really good at consultative selling to the enterprises, the leadership to the enterprises, and that's when you take that SPC certification, you drive the change across different Agile release trains, one Agile release train after another art, right? So SPC certification is something which people take, they build on their experience. Some of the SPCs are not so active in the market. Maybe around 10% of the entire SPC community is really active, but I would love to see, and that's why we do these meetups to, create business opportunities for everybody. So, and most of this is also thought-provoking and food for thought sessions, so that you can go back and start thinking about it, and then you start conversation, you find SPCs in the community, and then you start working with them. So there's nothing like a IC Agile Coach ACC certification that we provide, but SPC is something that helps drive the change as responsible for driving the transformation consulting within an organization. That's the certification that we have at SAFe. Last question.
So, how do you see the adoption of SAFe across industries? Like, do you see any variation, like let's say enterprise software versus automotive, mission critical? Do you see any differences or ease of adoption across the industries? Is there a pattern that you see?
So, one of the IT industry is something that you will find adopting SAFe, and I would say industry specific. I would not go domain specific. So IT industry could be, working on any of the domains. Like as I mentioned, the shipping example earlier. You couldn't have ever thought about that shipping company would be developing software. So shipping, transportation, financial services have been the early adopters. And same is automotive. You have plentiful examples in Germany. And then there are plentiful examples. So in terms of the market segments, in India especially, the global SIs and the global captives that we have, they are the early adopters and the adopters of SAFe, because that's how they are delivering value to the customers. They are also using SAFe as a business operating model to deliver value to the customer. Other organizations, maybe not so much at this moment. And I think with the platforms like this, the responsibility is also to increase the awareness, to evangelize, and to see that most of us walk into this room with maybe zero understanding of agility. Maybe you are able to kind of articulate this to other people that you now go ahead and talk to. So the idea is to also increase and evangelize. But yeah, naturally global SIs and the captives are the early adopters. The other segments like the product companies, Indian product companies, startups, it depends, again, what kind of value that you want to deliver. Some of the product companies have already started. The Indian enterprises haven't really adopted SAFe as much as we would want to. Maybe not so much of agility as well, because they're not aware about agility. Some people think that, okay, we are doing daily stand-ups, we are agile, right? So the understanding of agility is very skewed, and we need so many people to actually go out in the market to actually increase that awareness, evangelize, and eventually it will all give us the business opportunities to work with those organizations as a transformation consulting capacity to help with that. But if you have 50 plus people in the company, you're working on a system, you can adopt SAFe. That was the last question. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pranjal, for giving us a really good overview of SAFe and DevOps. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Don't go home yet. We still have another session, but I'd like, if anybody would like a quick break, let's say a 10-minute break or 15 minutes, we keep it like that. Quick Bible break, have some coffee, some water. We'll then have a small story about how Acellere is using Agile and DevOps, even internally for their own product development, right? And after that, we have dinner. Perfect. Thank you all.
We take a 5-minute break?
10 to 15.
10 to 15 minutes? Okay.
Should I change it?
Absolutely. So what I meant was that if you look at the automotive industry, if you look at Mercedes Benz and such examples, investing such heavily into IoT, artificial intelligence, different apps, which we can do a lot of other things. That is systems going SAFe would be like it. But if you are building a car, you can't possibly engine to it. So we need to apply what is personal principles that are fundamentally based on the need of the mindset and it's based on how we bring up the system. Actually, it comes into it. So lean definitely applies to manufacturing. It's safe, because it's safe built for the systems which organize manufacturing. I'm very curious when you have to deliver a plan that is for example, Boeing and Airbus are most like they're not really safe for assembly of the components. They're not safe because they have developing application license on there which runs on their and they have things. Also, that's where they use different systems of contents of work.
No, I was just thinking about because now we have when we have bugs, some issues, feedback from the media for them is now watched and push the changes on the that's why we want to create existing customer because the system itself is giving back tangible
That's what we have to
users of
And one of the other huge market in India is the service management, the service desk, right? Call into a call center. Are we doing SAFe? Are we doing agility? They can. Because they always have the clear support. You have some of the times they apply fixes and so forth. That is systems management. They have to come together, they have to, most of the times if you speak to the tier 1 support, they have absolutely no idea what the system is. They just call take the call, log the ticket, and that's pretty much it. They have no idea how to involve their systems so that they are aware of where the system actually is, what is the vision of that. So if we take them and make them as a part of it, then sometimes it's not something like
Not so much. I shared one of the articles by McKinsey. More than which talks about adoption of services. But I don't have a case study that I know of.
Is there a common
I can see some bottom
You can just Google McKinsey service management opportunities. Go along these keywords. It was published talks about how can service and if there is a which organization? Let's think about
It was a really good session. I didn't directly work but I do study this because I have and then suggest it's easier to fix the bug. Maybe you're not running the value at this point, but in longer term, more you test, faster you find the bug. Faster, lower is the cost. From that perspective, I think
but that's a different conversation. You can talk to our boss. Okay. I see. That's it. Right. Let's not talk about that. Okay. That's a different conversation. Things have been changing and processing. So let's see. We can always talk to us. So, platform, right. So when you are independent consulting or you are SOC type 2 enterprise, it's difficult to find out the solutions, right? It's difficult to find out how to find how to find innovation, and what is your interest in this. The only way that we can get together is a arrangement. If we do such meetups on regular basis, which scaling this gives us a platform to talk about this. What we don't do is we don't create leads and all that. We don't even do that for the partners. We just need partners that support them to build their sales. And maybe if something comes, then we share it to another set of partners, and they go ahead and do their own individual conversation. Maybe one or two of them actually get us. So we don't work on the lead generation model.
Scaled Agile, you would want to think of as a pure knowledge layer in an organization. Just pure knowledge based on the knowledge artificial and of course where you provide to customers. We also provide consulting as well. But the core is to the partners enterprise transformation. And you would not find us doing implementing these and solving for customers. We might certainly do that, but we would just, if we find that opportunity, we just enter that, ensure that the organization is on board, and we pass it on to those partners. So if you are taking from patients that business, then being a partner would be so there are a few partners now that we have and I work with partners and whatever it takes for them to let's say do 100 classes, do 4 transformations, whatever that they want to achieve. They have to tell me by working with them. Have the other I'm not entirely sure as to if it is there or not, but just like the rest of the university.
Oh, you guys are
So it's not connected yet. Is it connected yet? Not yet.
Another organization is
Anybody in Pune?
Yes. Are in front of the red lines. Well, I'll give you my colleague to explain it. One second.
Hey, hi.
If you have any question on one of the markets,
Yeah.
there's a
Hey everyone, we're going to start in 1 minute.
I think we have examples. We are going in Thank you so much.
Carry on something आगे the main inside parallel to the
Yes, everybody's here? Perfect. So next on we have Jayesh and Shantanu here to talk about Accelere's DevOps approach, but also a bit how it translates into Agile. So I welcome Shantanu and Jayesh.
Thank you for coming here, taking time out, and sticking around for our approach of DevOps. Is it visible? Not audible. Sorry. So, yeah, we just go on to the next slide. So I'll keep it very brief. So to understand the entire gambit of the DevOps that we have here, I briefly give the architecture that we have. Like what Sudarshan mentioned is essentially we are a static code analyzer. The product is called Gamma, and we have multiple languages support. So we have about 10 languages which we support, and then these particular languages give the output to a common analyzer, and then this analyzer essentially publishes everything on a web front end which talks to the database. So if you and this particular code or this particular software sits, I mean in terms of offerings, it actually I mean we deploy on-prem. So if any company wants to deploy it on-prem, they can deploy it on-prem, or they can use our cloud version for it. So these are the two deployment modes, and then there are multiple variants that we have when it comes to installers or Dockers or different kind of plugins that we have to facilitate code reviews and functional quality to the code quality of of your code. So so what Gamma does is, I mean, one highlight is that it is actually built using the DevOps toolchain, and the product itself also sits in the customer's DevOps toolchain. Yeah. Then I would like to give you a brief on the product development process that we have today. So we start with, so this is the top images of the current sprint or a release. So we follow one sprint, one release kind of a model, and so we follow a one sprint, one release kind of model where we start with the development which spans for 2 weeks. Then we do this integrated testing. So this integrated testing is where the testing team as well as the developers test the product in an integrated fashion. So, but after the development, there is of course a feature phase, and then when this integrated testing happens, then there are like bug fixes that the entire team. So the entire team works into the integration plus bug fixing kind of a mode. And then once the code is frozen at the end of the 3rd week, we go on to systems testing. So that's where the testing team essentially tests the product out, and then the code is already frozen. So only if there is a showstopper, only then we stop that release, or we kind of put a hotfix on that. So, and then once the system testing is okay, once we have the product demos and the testing team gives their green signal, only after that we go on to the release and deployment part of it. So this is a typical thing that we follow, and what we do is, so this is just what we have plotted in terms of the next development cycle. So this is say sprint 1, and this is the next sprint. But the development week 4 and week 5 would be where the development would actually start. So this is like an overlapped version of sprint that we are currently following. So next slide. Yeah. So then for the next portion, any questions in these like sprint or?
Just go back to the previous section.
Yeah.
So now, in case of when you have 2 weeks of overlap, so let's say after 4th week, if there is any major change, major defect in the code, which you can identify during the system testing.
Right.
So in there, so now once the code is finished, that particular branch is finished.
That's it.
And then you need to go back to the next branch to fix it. That major bug.
No, so if there is a only if there is a showstopper here, we'll add it as a hotfix in that thing. But it has
in the same branch.
In the same branch. So we open the branch, and then the commit has to happen. Then we, of course, and it also depends on when it is in the system testing phase. So if it is early, then it's fine. If we have a particular feature or a particular bug which is a showstopper and we still cannot complete it, then we would actually take down the release and then replan to actually fix it. And then release. So again, this release and deployment, we don't really deploy or release. I mean, this is releasable and deployable at the end of this. So we can take that call as to, I mean, product management and the testing and all the leads can take that call if we want to release it or not. So if the product is not releasable or deployable at the end of this, we won't deploy. So I would like to hand over the mic to Jayesh, who leads our DevOps effort, and then he would take you through the next slides.
Hello everyone, my name is Jayesh. I kind of look into the DevOps practice over here. So thanks for coming, and thanks for a patient audience so far. So as Pranjal rightly said, like, Agile is the mindset and DevOps is the culture. So we try to align our practice according to this philosophy. And 2 years back, when we started the DevOps and Agile movement in our organization, and since then we are trying to cope up with all the best practices, and we are trying to align our all agile as well as the DevOps practice with the standard norms. So in that effort, when anyone asks us, like, who is DevOps, so I would say everyone here who is working here is DevOps, basically because everyone is doing all their bits and pieces, and they are some or other way they are contributing to the release process or the release life cycle. So when we say DevOps, it's not only about CI and CD and all the mindset or culture, but the main motto of the DevOps, as Pranjal rightly said, is like it's the shared responsibility model. So it's not like it's not my code and I will not going to work on that, or it's not my thing. So in our team, like with the adoption, that is one of the advantage that we can say. So none of the developer will say like it's written into PHP or it's written into JavaScript and I am a Java developer or I am a Python developer, so I won't work on that. It's not like that. So since you are a developer or since you are a technical person, so everyone is working on each and every pieces, and they kind of know the entire flow of the product. So roughly we have 4 teams. So like how we implemented DevOps practice or agile culture in our organization is, for each release we have a release master, and it's not a DevOps person who is releasing the final artifacts. So sometime someone from team 1 will take the responsibility as a release master, and it's on the shared basis. So again, it's not like that if I am a release master then only I will release it, or it's not my responsibility or it's not my cup of tea, then I won't do that particular thing. So with that approach, what we achieved is like even in absence of DevOps team or DevOps person, everyone can release in our team. Means it's not blocking the release portion, or it's not blocking any feature to reach to the customer at particular time. So that being said, we kind of classify DevOps into 3 different practices. First is like the development process. So DevOps for development, DevOps for testing, and DevOps for release. So all these things we are going to explain it here. So as Shantanu mentioned, we have 4-week sprint and 1 sprint is 1 release. But let me add something to it. Like we have 3 months major release, and in every month we are doing minor release. So as we already looked in the previous presentation, measurement aspect. So what exactly we are doing is, we are taking the feedback from our peers, we are taking the feedback from the customers. We kind of release beta version of the next sprint or the next release to some of the customers, and based on their feedback we tend to change it, the functionality or like particular feature. If they want to have a particular feature, and if that is feasible and if that is according to our product baseline, then we try to accommodate it into the early phase of the cycle, so that the one of the aspect of DevOps is like we get the early feedback in the release cycle. So it's not like we develop the feature and after some point we get the it gets released and then only we get the feedback. It's not like that. We get the continuous feedback from some of our customers who are the trusted partners and trusted customers from our side. So we get the continuous feedback. So as I said, like everyone is a DevOps and everyone is a release champion in our organization. So talking about that, if particular feature is is getting introduced in our product, then we get the requirement from product management team, and then so just to go deep into the development cycle, so we create the feature branch for particular feature, and there are different teams, they work on the feature. Once the feature is been thoroughly tested from their side, they kind of, you all must be knowing the pull request and all the workflow. So I'm not going to explain it every bits and pieces of it.
But once the code is checked in through the in the feature branch, so they tend to create the pull request, which will trigger the. There are two kind of reviews that happens. One is the review from our own tool, that is Gamma review, and the second is the manual review. So what Gamma does is, whatever the new code that is being checked in, it reviews that code, gives our all the aspect of that particular code checking, all the parameters, and then whether it's been approved from the reviewers, like manual reviewers, and then through the Gamma, we have automated unit testing suite, which every developer, like as I said, like everyone here is a DevOps, so every developer who is having that particular feature, so they will run their automated test using some of the tools, DevOps tool like Docker and Vagrant. Once it is been completely approved, then it gets merged into Spring Batch. So, any question till now?
So it's not the Gamma who is rejecting the code, it's the next level who is rejecting.
No, actually rejection can happen at both the places, here as well as here. So based on the Gamma rating, so we have a rating in our product. So we have minimal standard rating, like if you are checking your code, then the rating of the Gamma must be above than 2 or 3. So that minimal parameter we follow, and then the manual reviews will happen. So based on the reviews, the team will decide, like whether we need some rework on that or whether it can go ahead. So based on that, pull request will either be rejected or it will pass on.
Curious question. I do want to know.
Yeah.
Automation testing is usually as part of your ongoing process.
Yeah.
And is this reviewers is a beta version that you are getting review from your customers, or it's like a end result, or the after the product which is after the system testing, that's a development cycle that you are just explaining?
No. About the customer ratings or customer reviews, we are getting it after the system testing.
All right. So this is only development.
Yeah, this is the development phase that we are.
And what are these reviewers mean? Is business reviewers, or is like your internal?
No, code reviewers. Internal code reviewers.
Okay. Code reviewers.
Yeah, so internal code reviewers are the manual ones, and through Gamma we have the automated code reviewers.
That's perfect. I thought the reviewers is like a.
Okay. So I want to add one. Yeah.
I should really congratulate you because you're using, you have confidence on your own product that you're using it on your own code, yeah?
Yeah.
So it's a really wonderful, I mean, I should really appreciate that, man.
Yeah. And I must say, like, we talked a lot about the theoretical portion of DevOps, Agile and everything, but actually I will not claim like we are 100% following it, but we are on the path. And our management has given us the free hand, like so we can try different things on that, and we are moving ahead with. It's a continuous learning process, right? Something might work or something might not work. So based on the previous learning, we are moving ahead. And one more thing which I want to mention here is like, so if a lot of time when we say DevOps, so everyone will say Kubernetes, Docker, microservices and all those stuff. But as a developer, no one will care about like how your product is going to deploy or how you are shipping your product. What will be the final artifacts? But what we have introduced is like in the automated unit test, the developer himself will write, of course, he will write the unit testing, and he himself will run all the test cases with the help of Docker Vagrant. So they will write their own Docker file. They will write all their Vagrant scripts. They will have provisioning of all the machines and everything. So let's not get into the virtualization and containerization. But they are the ones who are doing that. So that is one of the benefit from adopting the DevOps and Agile platform. Or else, otherwise, like in many organizations, people will be dependent on someone. Saying like, if I want to test my code on particular version of Java or, any operating system, then they need some assistance from either the operations team or the networking team. Any questions so far?
As you mentioned, you have some set of roles like deploy master, right? So what are the roles are there in your DevOps process, and what are the responsibilities you are distributing among those roles?
Yeah, so we have a release master. So maybe that we are trying to align it with the agile terms, but instead of having only one single person as a release master, we have each one person from each team will be acting as a release coordinator, and that person will finally, with the help of all his teammates, he will be contributing to the release. So yeah, those are the two roles basically we can say for particular release.
Actually, I wanted to know the process and what are the parts of that process. That's why I asked.
Yeah, so let's say suppose we have four teams, right? So each one from each team will be working as a release coordinator for that sprint, and once everything is settled, there will be one single release master or the release coordinator who will be actually deploying the artifacts. So DevOps will, ultimately it's a shared responsibility, and we cannot deny the fact that DevOps will be needed as a person who will having the more experience than the others, but it's a continuously learning phase, right? So basically whoever is assigned as release master, then he will, with the help of DevOps engineer, he will be the one who will be finally releasing the artifacts. So by that way, almost we have a team of, I guess, 35 to 40. Till now, 20 people have achieved the successful release without any, help from other people, or they know the entire release process.
It is on a rotation basis.
Yeah, it is on a rotation basis. So yeah, in continuation, like the feature branch gets merged into the sprint branch with all the reviews and all the testing from the developer.
One question over here.
Yeah.
So right now you said the feature branch is getting merged into sprint branch.
Correct.
Let's say for the it's a feature is very big and you cannot complete feature in one single sprint. You need multiple sprints or 2 or 3 sprints.
Yeah.
So in that case, how this merging happens?
So based on the priority, like the product management team decides what are the important features that should go into the current sprint, and based on that criticality, we decide like which feature to take and which feature not to take. So if particular feature is getting delayed for any reason, then that will be rescheduled, or that will be merged into the next sprint. Have I answered your question or something?
I'm still not getting your point. With the feature branch, I think it should be on the upper end. It's a sprint branch is, I will use sprint branch must be a subset of feature branch. Because this feature you distribute you divide the feature into user story. And let's say for example, one feature and you divided the one feature into 20 user stories, and you are delivering 10 user stories in one single sprint and 10 into another sprint. So after completing 2 sprints, you will be able to complete it particular feature. So in that case, how do you merge that? The feature by the sprint. It should be other way around.
So yeah, like feature branch is a subset of sprint branch, right? You are saying other way around it should happen.
Other way around.
No, but for particular sprint, whatever are the features, what are deliverables, that we decide in beforehand, before the sprint starts. So whatever features we are going to deliver, those features are the only one which we will merge into the sprint one.
Okay.
Current
Basically,
sprint.
you will have multiple feature branch ongoing in a particular sprint.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Correct. Not a single feature branch, multiple feature branch.
And just to add to that point, so if there is a feature that we already know is going to take, say, multiple sprints or multiple releases, that is not actually merged to this sprint branch. So the sprint branch for us is that particular release.
Okay.
So that is not much. So that feature would probably continue for 2 or 3 sprints, and only then once we are confident that okay this would work with our process, only then it would be merged with that particular sprint branch.
More of a branching strategy, how we discuss the site.
Correct.
And depending on the readiness of the feature, the drops that you want to integrate and regularly.
Correct.
So this is the first level where our product gets tested from the developer itself, and we get one of the advantage of DevOps is like you need to have the early feedback in your development cycle. So that we are achieving it here by reviewing it, and then developer himself will testing his own feature as per the product alignment. So this is the normal build cycle which we follow Jenkins as well as Maven for build process, and this is the second phase wherein before it actually reaches to the testing team. This is the second time where our product is being tested from a particular stakeholder. Whoever is the owner of that particular feature, this is the second time it gets verified from the owner itself. So we run module integration test and smoke test. As a product, we do have CI plugin which we can integrate with the Jenkins. This is the second time where our own code is being scanned through our own product. So whatever is the new feature that is being scanned again here, and based on the rating. So here it's just a brief saying the gamma rating, but there are a lot of aspects. Probably if you have time, then probably anyone can show the demo for that. But the code changes, code quality, all the aspects has been taken into the consideration, and based on that, artifacts will be created. So we have a feature of quality gate into our product. So what that feature will do is like we can kind of mention the acceptable parameters for particular feature. Let's say suppose the code duplication, or for that matter any such terms or any such feature. So we can configure it, and we can configure the quality gate out of it, and we'll make sure all the quality gates are passed for that piece of code.
So, do you have progressively increasing quality gates through each of the phases? Because you are saying development, you are having your gamma analyze your code.
Yeah.
So does the quality gate keep on increasing at every stage that you are?
So in the previous slide, it was the development cycle, right? So there, the developer himself will test his own code with the automation. Here, it will be complete integration test with the other modules as well. So we have a set of standard quality gates. So we try to that, like we should increase the the parameters for quality gate. But right now we have a fixed constant numbers which we are looking into, and then we kind of push the particular code till the artifacts. So as a product-based organization, we have two offerings as it is mentioned in previous slide. One is on-premise and the second one is cloud. In on-premise, we have different flavors like Linux, for different Linux flavors, Debian-based, YAML-based. Then for Windows, we have different Windows servers like Windows 7, Windows 10, Windows 12, Windows 16. Then we have a Docker, single Docker containing entire product in a single Docker image. We have Docker Compose support, and we also have a Kubernetes support. So you can gauge the number of artifacts that is being generated and the testing efforts for that, right? So the main challenge here is to how we can reduce the testing efforts, and that's when the DevOps tools comes to rescue, which we are mainly using Vagrant, CloudFormation, Ansible, to list few of them. So this is integration testing, or the build cycle where all the integration testing happens. Any questions so far? Then actual system testing cycle. So this is the cycle where our code actually goes to the testing team. So basically, till this point, our code has been analyzed twice and tested twice. Now in this cycle, we actually send our code to the testing team, and as I said, like we have different flavors and we have different variants. So we have installers to test, we have automated cloud deployment to test, and all these things are, automated. Most of the things are automated, and of course there are manual efforts as well for some of the things. But what we have achieved till now is installer test using Vagrant as well as CloudFormation on the cloud instances. Then automated deployment to the cloud testing environment, and the Docker image, whatever is the artifact of our product, is one of the artifacts is Docker image. So that Docker image also we tend to test it using Vagrant and Ansible. So actually here the testing team comes into the picture, and they run the automated test suite, which takes care of the data validation and the API validation. Any questions?
Curious actually. When you say QA team comes into picture, QA team is across there, right?
Yeah, QA team is across there, and
system testing is there is more of an integration product, that final integration after the integration is happening.
Exactly.
By all the feature branches, and they are putting minimal efforts to make sure that the things are working as is from all the feature branches without breaking because of the integration.
Exactly. What I mean to say is, like, this is when particular feature gets to the testing team. So it's not like, for 2 weeks of development what they are doing. So for particular feature, they are, as a team, they are already involved in the feature, particular feature discussion, and during that time they will create the automation scripts which will help them into testing at this point of time.
You are having like a T+1 automation cycle, or in the same sprint you are having the automation for the new features?
Yeah, in the same sprint we have this.
Then your system testing, why does it take 1 week if it is completely automated?
As I said, like, it's not completely automated. We have almost 15 variants or the 15 deliverables that we have to deliver. So, automation portion takes care of, I would say, like 30-40% of the features. Then manual testing also comes into the picture with all the variants. Means that is just one quality gate, just to move ahead. But all the product, ultimately the product should be tested manually as well as automated. But with this thing, what we have achieved is, like, you might be facing the same situation at your organization as well. Like, we have a feature, we have code ready, but we don't have any proper infrastructure to test on. So how to handle that, or how to tackle that situation? So with this automation, we have achieved almost 90% of the infrastructure dependability has been reduced. Yeah, so have you used Vagrant anytime? Yeah, so what happens is, since we have different flavors and we have installers which needs to be tested on CentOS, then Debian based systems, Oracle Enterprise Linux system. So every time it is really hard for the infrastructure team to provide all this infrastructure to the team. So with the introduction of Vagrant, what we have achieved is like it's an automated way wherein the installer will get tested. We have an automation script for that. So installer will be tested in all these variants without needing any additional hardware from the infrastructure team. Are you good here? So this is the iterative cycle that that usually happens in product development at our end. So development, review, automated testing, review, and manual testing. So once everything is been passed, so once the testing team gives the green signal for a particular feature or the particular release, then actually that particular build gets promoted to the master. And again, this is the continuous process. So from master, again all these artifacts will be created in the automated way. It will be it gets deployed to the cloud as well as locally in the virtual boxes. And we have some automated scripts since we have a product which scans the code, right? So there is no manual intervention wherein we have to install the product and then we have to log into the product, then scan the code. So through automation, what we have achieved is everything is automated, wherein installers being created through Jenkins. Once the installers are generated, we just have to fire Vagrant script which will install our installers, then logged into that particular product and scans 10 different types. Since we are right now we are supporting 10 different languages, so all the 10 languages will get scanned automatically and we'll get an email of the report. So if something goes wrong, then probably before before it goes to the next cycle or before wasting much time on what went wrong, we have a report and we can go into the system and we can troubleshoot.
What kind of test data do you use? Because you're passing 10 different languages here. So do you use some customer code or have you made yourself?
We mostly are scanning since customer code is proprietary data. So we are scanning the open source repository, and we are kind of comparing the results from the previous build to the next build.
And you have a set of this test data like bad code, good code?
Yeah. So we have a test data. We have generated the test data from the open source repository, and those are standard that we follow. We have streamlined the testing process wherein we have the standard set of repositories which needs to be scanned, and the standard output for that. So as I already explained, we have, once the build gets promoted to the master, again installers will get created. It will be automatically deployed to the staging environment and Docker Hub, then Amazon machine image, and we have a blue-green setup right now just to achieve the minimal downtime for our cloud infrastructure. And I want to share one thing here, like when we say how we are achieving the recovery, or what are the measures that we have considered when we went live on the cloud. So we have an automated Vagrant, we have an automated script written Terraform, which like Terraform is a tool wherein we can have the infrastructure as a code, and the current production environment whatever we have, so that is scriptable, and we have created the script. So as and when, and we in every two months or in every month we kind of test it, like whether if for any reason if our production environment goes down, then what will be the recovery time. So till now we have achieved till 20 minutes. So in 20 minutes all our production will get ready, in the another availability zone. And of course the traffic will be routed to that. So we are trying to minimize that time as well. But yeah, as I said, it's a continuous process and we are learning.
Are you only dependent upon AWS, or are you also taking care of other clouds also? Because we know that in the recent past, AWS has had downtimes itself.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons when we thought of Terraform.
Okay.
And just to be, cloud agnostic. Right now we are on AWS only, but just to be cloud agnostic. So DevOps is all about picking the right tool as well, right? So we have an option of CloudFormation and we have an option of Terraform, right? So we chose Terraform since we want to be cloud agnostic. So these are the current challenges that we have, and let me know your thoughts if you have better solution for that, or if any one of you have already faced or already facing these challenges. So one of the main challenges is Windows Docker image. So as we know, like Windows is being late to this Docker party, and they have their Docker image almost of size of 14 gigs, which makes no sense of Dockerization of particular product. So since our use case demands Windows Docker, we kind of stuck over there, like we have a 14, if your operating system image itself is a 14 gigs, then on top of that, if your application sits, then performance wise as well as maintenance wise, it will be nightmare, right? So that's one of the challenges that currently we are facing, and minimizing the downtime. So with Blue Green, we have already achieved the downtime of somewhere near about 15-20 minutes from 1 hour. But when we say DevOps, Agile and everything, continuous feedback, then you should achieve zero downtime, right? So that's kind of dream for us, but we are constantly working on that.
So your environment is entirely in AWS environment?
Yeah, currently we are entirely on AWS.
There's nothing local that you operate, or you don't have your local infrastructure?
We have, for on-premise, we have installers, right? But for the cloud offerings, we have AWS.
Okay. We got it. I think there are two different aspects.
Yeah.
I was thinking of a shell mode green environment in AWS, whereas if something fails in production, AWS kicks in. Since your offerings are completely
Yeah. As per our use case, like those are the best options that we have.
Yeah, got it.
So any question?
I have one question, but probably I'll see that that's a point of topic in addition to this particular challenges and approach, which is more of a branching strategy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, thanks. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you very much, Jayesh, and thank you, Shantanu. So yeah, we've come to an end. Before we head off for dinner, maybe I'd like to get feedback from you guys. From 1 to 5, where 1 is really bad, I'll never come again. 5 is, hey, great, I'd like to meet you guys again. If you could just show your hands. Oh, perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you guys for the feedback. One more thought is, it would be great if you could give us feedback on meetup.com as well, of those who are registered on. Also, if anybody would like to do a workshop or a speech, or even an open round discussion to solve problems like we'd like from the community, feel free to either contact Sanu or myself, and we'd be happy to host that with you. Thank you all for coming, and you will receive your e-certificates as part of participation very soon, I hope within the next hour. So dinner is served. Thank you guys for coming.